The weekend is here, and we have been analyzing price action throughout the week, and really we haven't seen much. I mean, if we're looking at, a lot of these projects that are up in a big way today on the daily, some of these are just bouncing off of the lows. We haven't really witnessed a lot of gains across the board when it comes to altcoins, and we're just still waiting on something to happen with Bitcoin because, again, Bitcoin is still hovering around 111K. Ethereum still hovering around 4,300. Even XRP still around $2.81 or so. SUI $3.36, almost $3.37. XLM about 36 cents. HBAR around like 22 cents or so. There hasn't been a lot of changes in price action. We've just been chopping. Some altcoins have been in a downtrend. So it's been a little bit boring, kind of frustrating for those that, maybe have been waiting and waiting and waiting. Listen, we've been waiting for about 8 months now for any sort of major sign of major price action on a lot of altcoins. I mean, XRP is an outlier because XRP did break over its previous highs. But, beyond that, most of the altcoin market has just been chopping. And we have yet to reclaim highs going back to December and January of, last year, but also the beginning of this year. So if we're thinking about that, we're still watching and waiting for something to happen with altcoins. Now, on the weekly, there's still definitely a lot of gains in the altcoin market that are kind of propping the market up a bit. Like, for an example, M up 178%, and then also like Pump up almost 35%. But listen, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Like, a lot of these projects that are up in a big way, especially on the weekly, it's like meme core. All right. There's not a lot of volume to support this push. And a lot of these projects and a lot of these coins, I mean, with M, I'm not too sure about because I just don't really look into meme coin stuff anymore. I'm sure that the liquidity tied to something like this is probably not the best. So to pump something like this up 178% in 1 week, it's probably pretty easy. There's definitely a lot of manipulation tied to some of these coins. So, when we think about these gains, these are just outliers, right? These are major outliers. The main thing that we're looking at is projects like XRP that if we look at the weekly, I mean, guys, XRP, even XLM on the weekly is up 1.9%. SUI's up 2.6%. XRP's up 0.6%. I mean, there's also a lot of altcoins that are down on the weekly, and HBAR is one of them. It's down 2.5%. And again, this is what I mean by most of the altcoin market right now is pretty boring. There's not a lot of gains happening in this market. Now, taking a quick look at the fear and greed index, we're back to 41 somehow, some way, because most of this market has not been really doing much. We're just bouncing slightly off of the, lows of the fear and greed index. And then also the total, right? Over the last 30 days, this is what the total looks like. We're still pretty flat. We're still pretty flat while we wait for Bitcoin to do its thing. Now, gold and even the S&P have been making new all-time highs. This is what the S&P looks like to really kind of close out the week. So we ran up all the way to about 65.33, and then we closed around 64.81. Again, we still made a new all-time high during the daily trading hours on Friday. And even our close wasn't too bad. It was just slightly under the prior highs. This is totally fine. It's totally healthy price action as well. I'm watching to see how things really, look next week leading into FOMC week, because, if things are looking pretty good going into FOMC week, then we get the rate cut, that's going to cause the S&P to probably hit around 67 to 6,800, depending on where we're trading at, towards the end of next week's close. But so far, the S&P looks pretty good here. I'm not too concerned about it. And I'm actually very excited to see stocks and gold get boring. Right now, crypto is boring, which is why money's flowing into the S&P and even gold. And we're just waiting for those markets to get a little bit boring so that the attention goes back over to crypto. It's the same song and dance I told you guys about when gold was trading at its highs back in March. Once gold became boring, guess what? Crypto bottomed in April. We started to go crazy in May, and we continued to do so up until recently. Now, let's talk about the Fed, because there's been a lot of videos coming out. Now, regardless of if you like Fox News or not, we've been hearing about a lot of issues with Jerome Powell, specifically how he's too late. He's always too late to, either raise rates, slow them. I mean, just the main problem here with the Fed is that they're too slow. That's it. And we have here, Fed policy isn't about economics, it's about politics. Check it out, guys.
At this point, Senator Schmidt, is it wrong for Americans to think the Fed's decision-making here isn't about economics, it's about political sabotage?
100% it's about politics. Jerome Powell has discredited himself. You look, he was too slow when the Democrats were spending at record high levels when they were in power. He was too slow to raise rates, and now he's too slow to lower rates. Although the one time he did do it was right before the Democrats had that presidential election that they need to hold on to. That was the one time he did do it. So I think he's discredited himself and poisoned the well in many instances over the prospective effect of tariffs. The truth is, you have hundreds of billions of dollars now coming into the Treasury, which may cut into the deficit. You see now trillions of dollars being invested in production in new factories in this country that are not online yet. So I think the good news is all the key elements are being put on the runway right now. You've got the one big beautiful bill with the tax cuts, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, stability in the market because those tax cuts are now permanent, avoiding the largest tax increase. You've got these trade deals, which are going to be good for American businesses in our agricultural economy as new markets are opened up. So you're seeing the runway being set here. But the truth is, there's a lot of capital, Laura, on the sidelines because Jerome Powell has proven to be incompetent
The
once
rates
again.
are too high.
So yeah, when we think about this, this has always been the argument around Jerome Powell that, he's always been too slow and too late. And even Trump also put a big focus on this as well. Again, most of these individuals from the current admin or even, senators are now speaking out about Jerome Powell. Is he going to listen? I doubt it. But listen closely to, what's being discussed here about, Jerome Powell.
We're still in the positive. Almost 500,000 new jobs that the president has created. He's done his job. The president is doing a wonderful job with the trade talks, with the tariff talks. Tariffs are working. Congress did their job by passing the working families tax cuts. You know who has not done their job? The Fed. Jerome Powell needs to do his job and cut those interest rates now. What is he waiting for? 2016, the president was correct. 2020, the president's correct, and he's correct today. It's time for all of who can assist the American people in getting this economy growing, and he's not doing his job. We're still in the...
So yeah, I mean, listen, everyone has been talking about this. Now, the biggest argument point from the Fed has always been the tariffs and the trade war. That's starting to alleviate in a big way. And we have over here from the Coinbase letter, a lot of changes coming. Rate cuts are now certain, the labor market is weakening to pandemic levels, and core inflation is above 3%. Those who quickly adapt to change will perform the best in this market, invest objectively, and the next 12 months will be great. And yes, that's exactly why this video clip is now going around, because the US added fewer jobs than expected in August. Now, was it still a positive? It doesn't really matter, right? The main thing to focus on here is the fact that the jobs market is getting hit. We're starting to see a weaker and weaker labor market, which is very good. I know this sounds crazy to say because it's like, oh, well, the labor market's weak, so hey, that's very bullish. But realistically speaking, the Fed needs a weaker labor market in order to cut rates. So the pressure is now on the Fed. And if we're thinking about this, here we have the full update. So it gets worse. All jobs gains were part-time. This is from Zero Hedge. We have full-time jobs, negative 357,000. Part-time jobs, 597,000. So when we think about this, again, the labor market is extremely weak. So all eyes are now on what the Fed is going to do because we have a weaker labor market on top of trueflation now showing inflation is under 2%. And the tariffs and the trade war is now essentially, alleviated. So what is now stopping the Fed from cutting rates? Absolutely nothing. So we look at what the market is telling us, which is we now have a 100% chance of a September rate cut and an 8% chance that it will be a 50 BPS cut. That's insane. If we get a 50 BPS cut, that would be wild for the market. That would cause the markets to erupt significantly. Now, I don't believe that we get an 8%, or I don't believe that we get a 50 BPS cut, which is why the 8% is so low. I would expect that to happen sometime probably within the October-December timeframe, but we are about 11 days out from the FOMC meeting. We have a 100% chance now of the ease, as you guys can see. 25 BPS seems as though it's going to be the case, which makes a lot of sense. And then even in October, right? If we're looking at October, there's a 100% chance as well of a rate cut. Now, looking at this, it seems as though a lot of people are in favor of, another 25 BPS. But 50 BPS is definitely on the table in October. That's where I would say the odds are stacked. And then also in December, a 100% chance as well. So really kind of looking at this, we probably see at least 2 rate cuts before the end of the year. Now, there's definitely a possibility that we get 3, which would make a lot of sense, but we got to take it one step at a time here. The main thing to focus on, though, is that we are about to witness rate cuts in a big way. If we're thinking about this, okay, that's going to cause the entire market to go crazy. We're not just talking about crypto, though. The S&P will go crazy during this time. Gold will also go crazy. Silver will go crazy. And this is at a time where, we're 11 days out from this FOMC meeting. Most people are getting a little bit concerned. Bitcoin's still hovering around $111,000 roughly. This is what the daily looks like. This is what the last 7 days looks like. We're waiting for something to happen here on the chart. This is what the 12-hour looks like. We still have some higher lows in place here. We're still watching this closely to, get a big break over this red zone. We need to clear that 114K. It's like 113.5K, but, I'll take 114K to get us over like the midline here. We still need to see a lot more price action on Bitcoin. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we need to see a lot more price action here. The same even goes with Ethereum, right? Ethereum on the daily looks like this. We still are looking at this possible higher low being, held in place. We could still wick down. We could still target, 4,200 exact or so before we see a big impulsive move. But that's what we want to see, is an impulsive move here, especially even on the weekly, right? I mean, looking at the weekly, as long as we hold above 108.2K, we should be fine. We should not lose these lows. This weekly close, if we can get a nice close over, 109K, that will be a very good start on Bitcoin, and we should start to see a recovery happening this upcoming week. So that's why I'm really watching this market right now, because we have nothing in front of us to tell us, hey, we should be very, bearish right now. There's nothing in front of us to tell us that. Most of the altcoin charts look like XRP right now currently as well. XRP is just chopping here on the daily. XLM now starting to create a lower low. I do expect us to hit this red zone around 30.5 cents, about 33.5 cents. That will most likely be the next stop. Is XRP going to follow this and, start to wick down into this blue zone? It's questionable, right? It's definitely possible. It just depends on how strong these altcoins are against Bitcoin and Ethereum during this time. XLM, it's a little bit more weaker. The same kind of goes for HBAR. I mean, HBAR has just been hovering around these May highs. We've just been chopping in this downtrend. And there's definitely this red zone down here to be focused on around like 16.5 to 19.5 cents, which is also a possibility. And then with SUI, there's no change with SUI. We're still looking at higher lows being held in place here on the 3-day. We've been holding higher lows since going all the way back to April. So I'm definitely dead set on watching this. If we can continue to maintain the structure, then there's no change on SUI at all. We should still be pretty bullish. But beyond that, the altcoin market is still just brewing and waiting for something to happen during this time, while, we really kind of inch closer to that FOMC meeting. And again, during this time, the main thing to really understand is, with Bitcoin and Ethereum, I know that we don't want to continue watching these, but the dominance around both of these, I believe that they have I know that they have a Bitcoin dominance. I believe that they also have Ethereum. Yeah, Ethereum is at 13.6. I don't know how accurate this is. I know it's typically off a little bit, but just looking at these charts, I mean, you could tell that the other's dominance is up about 1.22% today. We need this to really start surging significantly higher, because again, altcoins are still pretty weak here. Altcoins are not going to start to see a big push to the upside just yet until we start to see dominance really climbing. This is what we mainly look at when it comes to, all right, well, how strong are altcoins? Right now, Bitcoin still holds 57.9% dominance over the market. Ethereum still over 13+%. we want to see others really climbing during this time. And, you know, we won't really watch a lot of these altcoin charts break out until we start to see that dominance usurp from Bitcoin. Even if Ethereum is starting to see a lot more dominance than Bitcoin, or at least, you know, starting to see it climb against Bitcoin, you know, that's a good sign that momentum is picking up around altcoins. But if we look at the 1 week, you know, Ethereum dominance is now starting to sell off. And this is where we look at Bitcoin dominance and see the opposite, where Bitcoin dominance is actually climbing significantly higher against Ethereum and against the market. So that's why altcoins right now seem very boring. That's why most of their charts are starting to sell off or just chop to the downside. It's because Bitcoin dominance is rising while Bitcoin still doesn't know what it wants, right? We are still trading around this red zone. We're rejecting this red zone. We need to see a big break over this. We need to see higher lows being held. And I think that the weekly close will definitely be a big moment for Bitcoin. If we can maintain above 109K, that will definitely be a good sign. After that, we mainly just look at the recovery going into next week. And then after next week, we look at the FOMC meeting to really start to ignite, you know, the bull run yet again. So right now, all eyes are on the Fed. All eyes are on what Bitcoin can do this weekly close. And then this upcoming week, you know, I'm just looking at how the S&P trades. I'm looking at altcoins to see if they can, you know, regain some momentum against Bitcoin. But beyond that, you know, right now, just kind of a boring time, a little bit frustrating if you think about it. But, you know, just get through this. I'm telling you guys, get through this. The end of September should be looking very, very good. And then Q4 should just be very good for the market. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because there's more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord on the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.